Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Tuesday session with Centered CEOs. I'm Janet Semenova, and I'm joined by my partner, Angela Rice. And we are the co-founders of two companies, Boutique Travel Advisors and Centered CEOs. And we do these Tuesday live sessions pretty much every Tuesday at 1:30 Mountain Standard Time, where we talk about things that will help you run your business more efficiently so that you can elevate your brand, delegate responsibilities, and replicate successful outcomes. And today we're talking about leveraging the power of gratitude to create a more successful business and a happier and healthier well-being. And I actually threw Angie for a loop today. She did not think she was going to have to join me because for those of you who know us, Angie and I are kind of like a yin and a yang. Angie is the analytical, financially savvy, and really concrete operational part of our duo. And I am much more the creative, philosophically minded, and really much more into the mindfulness and the psychology of running your business. So when I told Angie we're going to talk about gratitude, she said, "Great, have fun." And then about 45 minutes ago, I said, "Oh, by the way, you're going to be joining me today. And not only are you going to be joining me today, but I'm going to be putting Angie on the spot. So I'm going to be asking Angie questions that she is not really prepared for. And I'm going to get her a little bit uncomfortable so that we can leverage the power of discomfort and see how it relates to gratitude." And just really quickly, for those of you guys who are sitting here thinking, what the heck does gratitude have anything to do with running your business or being a centered CEO? We're going to talk about that today, but the short answer is pretty much everything. So Angie, do you want to introduce yourself real quick?
Hi, thank you for joining us. And like Janet said, I thought I was going to be able to play hooky from today's appearance. But I agree with Janet. I mean, Janet, having worked in a hospital setting for so many years, she really was able to bring the experience of empathy and humanity into running our business. And it wasn't something that I didn't think was important by any means, but it was very fascinating to see the culture that we developed in our business and how substantially different we run our business in comparison to the many businesses that I saw run during my consulting days working with Fortune 500 companies to other small businesses. And I think we've created an environment that has really elevated the way that we run our business, but also it allows us to create opportunities in our business and to be able to think outside the box and also be able to respond better to struggles and pain points. And we could have kept, running our business, but we really felt compelled to share our message and to provide a supportive community for other business owners. And I'll say it again, our goal is truly to reach 10,000 business owners and to have some level of effect on you, whether you work directly with us or whether you're just a person that participates in our Facebook group. We highly encourage that you post your wins and post your challenges because your membership in this group is important to us and it's important to others in the community.
Yes, so thank you for joining us today, and I'm glad. Hello, can't wait to hear what you guys have to say today. Hopefully it's going to be meaningful and inspirational. So I was recently asked by a magazine, Authority Magazine, to do an interview on how to leverage the power of gratitude to improve your overall health and mental well-being. And it's something that I practice, so I'm practicing what I preach and I really believe in. And I'm really grateful to Authority Magazine for the opportunity. And if you guys haven't had a chance to read the article, you can read the whole thing. But we'll go over some of the things that we talked about in the interview and why it matters and why it's important and why now during this hopefully tail end of a very challenging 12 months and living through this pandemic, why it's more important than ever for us to become more conscientious, more empathetic, more centered and mindful business owners, entrepreneurs, and CEOs. And when we named our company Centered CEOs, that was extremely intentional on our behalf because that is really what we believe in. We believe that for a company to be successful, you have to have a happy team, you have to have mental and physical well-being, you have to have balance, you have to have structure, and you have to have joy and a greater purpose. So our greater purpose is to help 10,000 business owners, as Angie mentioned. So again, what does gratitude have much to do with anything? For those of you guys that don't know me, I am a certified nurse practitioner. I worked in the hospital and healthcare setting for over 15 years. And my background really is in the pediatric world, where I worked with very sick children for over a decade in the field of pain management, and prior to that in pediatric oncology, so kids who had cancer. And that whole experience was probably the most important, and what shaped me the most in my life was that work experience. Because when I met patients who truly were suffering and were going through some of the most unimaginably difficult and unfair situations of their lives, and families whose children were suffering, and as a parent myself, those of us who are parents, the one thing that we feel like is our job is to protect our children. And when we feel like we can't protect our children and our children are hurting, it's an extremely disempowering, frustrating, and hugely traumatic experience. But what I learned through all of that is actually the power of gratitude that people who are in the most dire situations of their life have. And I noticed that the patients and the families who leveraged gratitude actually had better outcomes. Their pain was lower, they were happier, they were more optimistic, they were more hopeful. And even if their long-term outcomes were still, negative, their overall quality of life was much higher. And so it's been something that I've thought about for many years, and it's been in the back of my mind. Why is it that way? Why is it that people who are optimistic and hopeful and grateful, why are they happier? Why are they able to overcome really difficult situations, while other people who maybe have everything else, working in their favor, but don't have the right mindset, are not able to overcome these experiences? And again, as business owners, we face a lot of challenges on a daily basis. And hopefully most of us will never go through, the truly life-threatening illnesses. But even still, the challenges and obstacles and stressors of running a business can have a detrimental effect on your life and your overall mental health and your well-being. And the power of gratitude, scientifically speaking, because again, I love science and I love to talk about things that are scientifically, clinically proven. I don't really believe in speaking about things that haven't been studied, because I think that science is extremely powerful, and I'm a huge believer in science. But gratitude has been shown to lower fear, lower anxiety, lower resentment, and decrease social comparison. So when we compare ourselves to others, whether that's in a good way or in a bad way, we are putting a lot of pressure on ourselves to compete. And so when we're constantly comparing ourselves to other business owners, to other entrepreneurs, to other employees, when we're comparing our employees to other employees, we have a underlying sense of anxiety and fear. And the way to combat that is, one of the ways to combat that is through gratitude practice. And gratitude can actually improve our self-esteem, it can improve our relationships, and it can help us create a purpose to our life. So because I promised Angie I was going to put her on the spot today, I'm going to ask her a few questions, and we're just going to have a little bit of a dialogue about things that really matter to small business owners, but also to us as human beings, as mothers, as wives, and as women. So Angie, which one should I start with? I wrote a few questions down for her, but I guess one of the things I can ask you is, what do you think? You've worked with a lot of leaders, you've worked with a lot of executives, you've worked with a lot of entrepreneurs, you've worked with huge corporate 100, executives, also small business owners. What do you find helps a leader become a good leader? What qualities have you seen that make a really exceptional leader?
I think leadership is definitely defined by character. So we look at the character qualities of a leader and what qualities make that leader a good mentor for his or her team, and also allows the team to be able to embrace their individuality within the group. The leaders that I've worked with or I've observed, those that really succeed, particularly in challenging times, are those that have built a team around them, a very trusted team. And how do you build that trusted team is that you exude your leadership qualities onto other people so that they can work towards becoming leaders themselves. CEOs have so many responsibilities, and particularly companies with 30,000 or more employees. I'll think of Jack Welch as a perfect example. Most people know of his background as the CEO of GE. When those leaders are able to create connectivity with each and every employee, it resonates. It tells you they have leadership qualities that go beyond the norm. And I think you can look at those leaders and see specific qualities in them, such as that they value health and wellness. They value the underlying happiness of their employees. They value innovation and creativity, and they allow the employees to take ownership and responsibility into creating the future growth of the company. So I think it's important that a leader is very team oriented.
I love that. And I think that that's an excellent point. I think great leaders also inspire others to want to be successful and to feel like they can be successful. So how does gratitude help you to be a better leader? Well, as I mentioned earlier, daily gratitude practice, and there's a lot of different ways to practice gratitude, but truly being thankful for what you have and where you are in the world and not comparing yourself to others helps you be more empathetic and more open-minded, and also it helps you to be more resilient. So one of the things that makes a great leader is the ability to overcome obstacles, whether those are obstacles that they're personally facing or obstacles that their team is facing, with an open mind, right? Because a leader that is not as effective will see an employee who makes a mistake, and what do? They berate them. You're not good enough. You're not doing your job well. You're not smart. Sometimes they can be really aggressive, and even, there have been leaders who have been verbally abusive to their employees. And what that creates is a disconnect. So it creates a power struggle where the leader, the CEO or the entrepreneur, the owner of the company is up here and everyone else is down here. And when you have that, you don't have a connection. And when you don't have a connection, you don't have trust. And when you don't have trust, you're not inspiring people to want to do better. You're not inspiring loyalty. You're not inspiring innovation. You're not inspiring creativity. And a leader who practices gratitude understands that A, we're all human, B, we all make mistakes, and C, we are all able to do better.
Yeah.
You just muted yourself.
A true leader is committed to growth. They're committed to the growth of others, and they're committed to allowing people to achieve greater success. And if you look at some of the great leaders, a lot of the great leaders have gone on to create other successful leaders. So it's this allowing other people to achieve even a success that's greater than your own. And I think particularly in big business, I've noticed that a lot of people who've succeeded up that quote unquote corporate ladder are those that allowed people to be recognized for their contributions. We don't get to be CEOs, business owners, or high-paying executives if we are not recognizing the very people who gave us those opportunities, both the people who promoted us as well as the people who played a role in supporting our promotability throughout our career. And I think even as business owners, it's really important to think of, I think we lose sight sometimes, small businesses, of necessarily having titles or the notion of a promotion, but everyone needs that moment of recognition from time to time. So even though you might break away from those types of structures, I think it's important to identify milestones, identify achievements when people have been with your business for 5 and 10 years, and also those moments in between where they achieve a goal or they go above and beyond in servicing a client. That recognition, a leader is going to show their employees and their team members recognition any chance they have the opportunity to do so, because that's inspiring them, and it allows them to be able to build the confidence that they need to also be future leaders.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, leaders who are really inspiring are happy to give the credit away, right? A good leader will say, this is not just me, this is my team. Thank you so much. They will, they'll thank their team. They'll have genuine gratitude for all of the people that helped make whatever project or success or company successful. A leader who's not as effective might have insecurities, and they might be nervous to shine the spotlight on someone else. They might feel like, okay, well, if I give too much credit to my team, then I'm not taking enough credit for myself. Or maybe if I give my team too much freedom or too much, not enough accountability, then they're not going to be as effective. And a lot of times it's actually the opposite that's true. When you put the spotlight on your team members, when you give them sort of more free reign to create and to be inspired and to come up with ideas, you're actually leveraging their talents and their abilities, and you're bringing them up. And when you bring them up, we have one of our human qualities is this concept of reciprocity. So if someone does something nice and kind for us, we feel the need and the desire to do something nice and kind back, or paying it forward to the next person. And so when you truly mentor your team members and you are grateful for their hard work, you're grateful for their knowledge, you're grateful for their effort, you say, thank you so much for your participation, thank you so much for sticking with our company, thank you so much. Even when things are not going well, you know what, it's okay that you made this mistake, we're all human, let's learn from it. How can we improve this in the future? How can we use this? How can we leverage this negative situation to create more positive outcomes in the future? You're inspiring loyalty. And leaders who have loyal employees, I mean, first of all, just from a strictly financial standpoint, Angie can, attest to this from an analytical analysis standpoint, it's very expensive to hire and train new employees, and it's very time consuming. And so one of the things that most business owners will tell you that makes them successful is being able to retain high quality team members. And how do you do that? Well, you create an environment in which they can grow and thrive, and in which every person in your team feels like they are contributing something, feels like they are part of a bigger picture, that they have a greater purpose than just coming to work and doing their job. So, okay, my next question for Angie is, what brings you down? What types of things make you feel kind of blah? What brings you down?
Environments. Sometimes we can control our environment, and other times we cannot control our environment. So sometimes I get frustrated and it brings me down when I'm in an environment that I can't control and it's not a healthy environment. Whether that's being in a situation where you're around negative people, that can be very frustrating. You're very right. Happiness and joy is so contagious. So when you create that happy environment in your workplace for other people, it truly is contagious. And when you walk into a doctor's office, or you are shopping at a store where everyone's friendly, from the patrons to the employees, from the person that's at the cash register to the person that's in shipping and receiving, when you have happy personalities present, it's very observant, and there's just some sort of aura in the air. So the environment is very important to me, and we can't always control that. So we need a way to respond to those types of environments, and do what you can to change the situation. If it's a negative attitude, play a part in adjusting the negative attitude that's creating that unpleasant environment. I think I also get brought down when I don't create boundaries. And one of the best ways to create boundaries for me is to really stick with asserting those boundaries and making sure that I don't compromise those boundaries. So that's having a start and end day to certain projects and being able to put things down. And if I do get in a situation where I'm not able to manage those boundaries, I have to reset. It's important to reset. That means, stepping outside of the house and doing yoga, or it means going for a walk with my husband and our dog, or it means sitting down with my children and baking or cooking. And I'm not the best cook, but my son seems to enjoy it. So just recognizing that there's these opportunities to stop what you're doing and reset. And it's never too late in a day to reset, and it's never too late in your way of running your business to make those types of changes.
Well, and then the next follow-up to that would be, how do you think your performance, how do you think your mood affects your performance? And we have a great question. Do you think the implementation of gratitude in a business could improve workers' performance? So that's a great segue. I absolutely 100% think that a gratitude practice could improve workers' performance. I've seen it firsthand. When people feel appreciated, they are more motivated to have higher performance. They're more motivated to be creative. They're more inspired. They're happier. And when you have happy employees, of course, they want to do more. They are more likely to, stay overtime, go above and beyond. And when you are sparking creativity, then they're more likely to get into the flow, versus when people don't feel appreciated. And every single one of us wants to, this is an innate human desire. We want to feel needed. We want to feel wanted, and we want to feel appreciated. Right? Like, some of the biggest arguments people have in life, in their marriages, with their kids. And I say this to my son. I said it, I think, this morning: you don't appreciate me. I literally said that to my son as he was walking out of the car, because I feel like he didn't have enough gratitude for the fact that here I am, like, rushing around early in the morning, trying to pick him up from swim practice, bringing him to school, and he was complaining about something, and he wasn't showing gratitude. So even as an adult, even as a parent, we want to feel appreciated. So when you have team members who feel that they are appreciated, that they're wanted, that their contributions matter, I mean, it definitely improves performance. But for Angie, the question is, like, how do you think your mood improves your performance consciously? If you had to answer that question, do you think that it affects it, or do you think you can kind of get your work done no matter what?
The day is started based on my mood. And if I wake up and I'm not in a good mood, then that morning I need to reflect on how I can adjust that mood as quickly as possible. Because I feel like if you wake up in a bad mood, if you don't shift it right away, it ends up compounding throughout the day. So I think in the morning before I wake up, it's always important to kind of really assess how I'm feeling. And next to my bedstand, I have a few different books that I read. I do have a gratitude journal. And again, it's very simple. 2 or 3 positive things can really, if you write them down and you think about them, it really clears your mind away from anything that's distracting you that might be creating a negative mood. And sometimes if I really feel like I'm struggling and I'm not going to be able to change that mindset, I'll read a chapter in a book. And I always have 2 or 3 different books going at one time, because if it's wanting to read something that's more strategy and business related, I'll go in that direction. Otherwise, I have, another nonfiction biography type book that I'm reading, or I have something fun like poetry, short stories that I can quickly gravitate towards. But I think you have to create those outlets. And if the outlets don't exist, it's just like a 2-3-year-old. If your child's hungry and you don't have snacks, or if your child's bored and they're going to act out. So you need tools in order to support that child. No differently, we need tools to kind of reset ourselves throughout the day. And I think your morning tools are probably most important. And then throughout the day, I always have 2 or 3 things on my desk that I don't use them as distractions, but if I need that distraction to change my mood or to reset, they're available to me.
Yeah, one of the great things that, I mean, and I practice a lot and I believe in it wholeheartedly, is the practice of mindfulness. And part of mindfulness is gratitude. They're very intertwined. And so, like Angie said, the way you start your day, and I know this personally, like when I'm in a poor mood or I'm feeling really down, I'm not creative. If I'm writing something, my writing is not very good. I don't really get nearly as much work done. I don't feel inspired. I feel kind of like tired and blah. And I think 100% when your mood is low, you're just not as productive. And again, that's been, studied and proven, but it's also, very intuitive. If you're happy and you're feeling great, then you're more likely to, perform better. But definitely the way that you wake up and start your day is so important. And so I love the idea of doing a gratitude practice every morning. And it only takes, a minute or two. And if you write it down, I think writing things down is great. A lot of us have stopped writing because we are all so glued to our phones and our computers. And so we're always typing or text messaging. But physically taking a pen and writing something down, it's a very therapeutic process. And so I write down like 2 or 3 things every day, every morning that I'm grateful for. And after a while, you create this gratitude journal or a gratitude diary, whatever you want to call it, notebook. And, when you're feeling particularly down, or if you wake up and like things are just not going your way, or you're just having a bad day, whatever happens in your life, if you flip through that and read through all of the things that for the last week, month, year that you've been grateful for, it's extremely uplifting. And so even on the worst days, even on the days when I feel really low, I can always come up with 2 or 3 things right off the bat that I'm grateful for. And sometimes, I think people make it too hard. You don't need to, sit there and think for 30 minutes and try to come up with something really big. It could be something super simple, like I'm grateful that it's a beautiful warm day outside. And so I go outside and I take a walk. I'm grateful that I have my dog because I can cuddle with her. I'm grateful, that my kids are healthy. I'm grateful that I have a warm bed to sleep in. Really simple things, but it rewires your brain and it really resets. And it also, gratitude practice releases feel-good hormones, serotonin, dopamine, and positive endorphins that then lift your mood throughout the day. And the way you start your day tends to be the way that your day continues. And so, that expression, wake up on the wrong side of the bed. Well, if you wake up on the wrong side of the bed, just roll over and get up on the other side of the bed. You don't have to, your day doesn't have to continue down that same path. And I think, really good leaders and really good CEOs and entrepreneurs recognize that. And, some of the most famous entrepreneurs in the world credit mindfulness practice to their success. I know Arianna Huffington is huge on that. I'm a huge fan of hers. And so many other entrepreneurs practice gratitude and also practice mindfulness every day. And when you have this acute awareness of the present moment and you're able to focus, you're able to see things much clearer. And so then you're not as likely to get stuck on the little things, right? Like the things that tend to make us feel stuck, make us feel unhappy, are things that usually we don't necessarily have control over and we can't change in that moment, or things that really in the grand scheme of things just don't matter that much, but we perseverate on them. So one of the ways to stop perseverating on the things that are bringing us down is to look at the bigger picture, to practice gratitude, to step back and say, okay, maybe these 3 things are going wrong, but these 10 things are going right in my life. And so it's okay. Or these are 3 things I can't control. Here's 10 things I can control. I'm grateful for the fact that I'm able to, choose who I have dinner with tonight. I'm grateful for the fact that I can choose my friends. These are the things I can control. And so reinforcing that in your mind over and over again really reframes your thought process and eliminates a lot of those negative beliefs that really bring us down. You're muted. Angie's trying to talk.
Okay. I wanted to share that for me, when it comes to business, it's understanding that we have to deal with conflict. And so when we have a positive mindset, we're able to deal with that conflict. And not that we overlook the conflict, but that we recognize that in the moment of dealing with conflict, more than likely, the conflict is the worst moment. So the resolution is taking place. And as that resolution takes place, there's opportunities to really grow and inspire. And I'll use an example. And I'm sure many of you have had to face this, where if your business is in a standstill, like many businesses during the pandemic, that might have resulted in having to eliminate positions, or in cases where a company is going in a different direction where it becomes maybe less labor intensive, that might result in having to eliminate positions. And you could look at that very narrowly and really focus on the impact that it's going to have on the individual that's affected, or you can allow that opportunity to resonate with you as well as the individual, and be able to create the conversation with that person that allows you to say, we can no longer provide this position for you, but we are going to do everything in our power to leverage this opportunity for you to create other opportunities, especially if it's a good employee. Just because somebody has to be let go doesn't mean that they're not valuable to that organization. The organization may have just changed, or it might be economic conditions that require the position to be eliminated. So as an employer, when you have to make tough decisions, and that's one of the toughest decisions, when you have to let an employee go, look at it a little bit differently from their perspective and how you can create new opportunities for them. And keep in mind, when they go off to do bigger and better things, and if they leave on the terms that you did everything in your power to create better opportunities for their future, they are going to speak so highly of your company. And you never know, if they stay in a similar industry, there might be synergies and opportunities for that employee to work with you in a different capacity outside your firm. So look at the positives as you are dealing with conflict, and certainly when it's time to deal with the resolution of that conflict.
I love that. I mean, I think that that is so important. And so many companies fall into this trap where they're downsizing or they're letting someone go, or sometimes it's just not the right fit, right? I definitely believe that any relationship, and you have a relationship with your team members, you have to have synergy. And if you don't have the right synergy, you could have the best employee and the best business owner, and they just don't mesh, and that's okay. And so when you practice gratitude for the person when you practice gratitude in general, you definitely create, especially when you do this on an ongoing basis, and if you have a gratitude practice that you've done for 6 months or a year, you start to see situations a little bit differently from a different perspective. You start to see people from a different perspective. And so rather than judging, which a lot of us fall victim to this judgment mode, we start judging people like, this person's lazy, this person's not good. And I mean, we're all guilty of it. We've made that mistake. But when you can stop yourself and say, you know what? This team member is not the right fit for my company, but I'm going to help them as much as I can, use this as a learning opportunity. Maybe they didn't perform quite as well as they should have. So maybe then, you're put in that awkward situation where, do you give them a referral? If they put you as a reference, do you give them a good review? Do you not? And I think practicing honesty and integrity and having those honest conversations with the team member and saying, I'm grateful for the effort. I'm grateful for the time we spent together. Here's what I learned. Here's what I hope you learned. And let's both come out of the situation a little bit wiser. And I think that reframes and takes care of a lot of the conflict, and takes care of a lot of those uncomfortable situations that can actually, if you don't handle them well, can really tarnish your reputation. And I think that, that's a separate conversation entirely, but something that Angie and I talk about a lot is positive conflict resolution. So one of the ways to have positive conflict resolution is to have honesty and awareness, and not be judging, and not be in that judgment mode, not be a judgmental individual where, you are honest about the fact that we all have limitations. You're honest about a person's strengths and weaknesses, and you're not, you're able to see them kind of from a fresh perspective. And so we have another question. Do you guys feel when you're practicing gratitude that you're able to act more intentionally to problems, contrast, rather than simply just reacting? Oh my gosh, 100%. That's one of the biggest things with mindfulness. Mindfulness really teaches you. And when you practice mindfulness, I've been very intentional and committed to my mindfulness practice for quite a while. And really throughout this pandemic, I really made it a point to commit to a daily mindfulness practice. And I think it 100% teaches you to respond rather than react. Because most conflict, when you think about conflict and think about the last fight you had with a friend or a spouse or your child, it comes from a place where someone says something, someone does something, you feel unappreciated, back to gratitude, right? Like you feel like the person's not appreciating your effort. I did all this for you. You don't even say thank you. You don't appreciate me. Or you feel like they're being disrespectful or whatever it is. You have a conflict. And normally, people, we fly off the handle. We react. We lash out. We say things maybe that we don't mean. And when you practice gratitude and you practice mindfulness, it really allows you to step back for a moment and have that like split second where you say, okay, I'm going to respond intentionally versus just reacting. And when you take that breath, even sometimes literally it's as short as like one breath, you get clarity and you're able to see again the situation from a different perspective, from a different lens, right? It's kind of like the Wizard of Oz, the Emerald City is green, but it's not really green. It's all of us have blinders on. And when we're in a situation where we feel like we're being attacked, or we feel like we're not being appreciated, or we feel like there's conflict, we have a tendency to react. We have a tendency to just want to defend ourselves. And that's usually where a lot of the conflict comes in. And so gratitude practice 100% allows you to have much healthier interactions, and also just be much more mindful and intentional about how you respond to people, how you talk to people, how you make other people feel, because you are a more empathetic individual. And so you can see things from the other person's perspective. It's much easier to practice kindness when you have empathy.
And when solving problems, a lot of times we focus on the people involved in the problem, but you truly have to isolate the problem from the persons involved. And a lot of times when Jan and I might have a dysfunctional communication day, I'll say, a lot of times if we really take the time to recognize that we're just not gelling on a particular day, 9 out of 10 times, it's simply because one of us is tired. It's that simple. So I think it's really important, or maybe it's something in our home life that's just disrupting us. So I think when you deal with relationships and problem solving, solve the problem. Don't try to contribute the causation to an individual. And then when you're dealing with people and you're looking to improve performance, set out objectives, look at it more objectively, because you got to take the personal impacts of a problem out of the equation in order to solve it. And you typically in a business, we have to work with the best people we have at a given point in time. And our goal is to make those people better performers. But you cannot do that overnight necessarily. And at the same time, some of the strengths that we have in an employee is directly related to perhaps some of their weaknesses. And when I worked in consulting, we'd have to put projects together. A lot of times we had short deadlines, longer deadlines, which we would staff different people on those types of projects just because of their skill sets and their ability to be more engaged over a longer period of time. And then we had consultants that did much better on shorter engagements. They like to go from, project to project and move on, whereas others were more methodical and did better on a longer project. We also had, just as accountants and finance and economists, you can easily sort of create some sort of typecast that those people are not necessarily creative. But to be honest with you, there's a lot of creativity that goes into analytical work as well. But you might have some report writing that's required in consulting that doesn't allow for the creative flow of writing. And I remember a consultant that I worked with that I managed, and her writing was just fabulous. And she also had very strong analytical skills. And it really moved her away from really wanting to dive deep into financial data and accounting data. And she recognized that she really liked using data more for what I would categorize as market research. And she went on to get a master's, her MBA at a fabulous university, and went on to do marketing when it was early on, where marketers were really starting to use data more intentionally. And she did fabulous, and it allowed her to kind of balance her creativity with her prior background in accounting. So I think it's really important to recognize our skill sets and how we can best utilize our employees and recognize where they're strong, where they're weak, where we can grow in both areas. It's just as important to hone their strengths as it is to make some progress on their weaknesses. But you still kind of have to accept putting responsibilities on people where you're going to get the best results.
Yeah, I like that example a lot because, again, like with a person like that, and Angie and I have talked about that story before, a lot of that also comes down to her mentorship and her leadership. If you have a leader and you notice in one of your employees or your team members that they're struggling with something, but they're really excelling in something else, what a good leader will do is identify those strengths and nurture them and inspire the person to develop those strengths, whatever those strengths are. And sometimes that means that they might, again, not be the right fit for your company down the road. And that's okay too. So nurturing your team members and nurturing your employees will have a much better ROI down the road than, trying to kind of fit that square peg in a round hole and trying to, force a team member who maybe is not naturally apt at doing something to learn a skill set that maybe they're not ever going to really excel at. And then they start to feel bad about themselves, and then their self-esteem gets down, their performance is low, then they're not as happy. But in the interview I did with Thrive Global, we talked about, they asked me for 5 ways that we can leverage the power of gratitude to improve our overall mental health and well-being. And I just thought I'd share those with you today. And then I'm going to put Angie on the spot and make her come up with a couple as well. But the ones that I talked about that again are really important to me and that I personally practice is 1, create a gratitude sanctuary. So what do I mean by that? A gratitude sanctuary essentially means that you are building a gratitude house. Okay, so start by, if you don't have a gratitude practice right now, it's very easy to start it. Just make a commitment that you're going to commit to writing down 3 things that you're grateful for every single day. And so today, write down the 3 things you're grateful for today. And then the next day, you reflect on what you were grateful for the previous day and you build upon it and see where it takes you. And before you know it, I call it a gratitude sanctuary because you fill room by room by room. And you start off, sometimes it's really great if you're in a low place in your life, but also in a good place in your life. Because if you're in a low place, you feel like, oh my gosh, I have like nothing to be grateful for. Life is just difficult. It's terrible. Everything's going wrong. My relationships aren't good. My job's not good, whatever. I have money problems. All of those things, when you start practicing gratefulness for a few things every single day, you'll see that your rooms fill up. And before you know it, you have an entire gratitude sanctuary, and you can always rely on that. And when you're feeling down, you can flip through that journal and say, oh my gosh, all these wonderful things in my life, I have nothing to be upset about. I can manifest a brighter future. If I'm not happy with my job, I can go get a different job. If I'm not happy in my relationship, I can fix my relationship. I can work on my relationship. I can improve it, or I can leave this relationship if it's not the right one for me. It really gives you a lot of, it boosts your self-esteem and makes you happier. The next one that I love, and I stole this one from the Dalai Lama, is ask for what you have. And Angie and I are all about goals. We set a lot of goals. We set big goals, small goals, micro goals. We talk about micro goals a lot, but this is a little bit different. Sometimes when we're really busy setting goals, we lose track of the things that we're already accomplishing. And so when we set big goals and we don't necessarily achieve them as quickly as we think we should, or we get sidetracked or whatever happens, we start to feel down on ourselves, and we start to feel like, oh my gosh, I have this long checklist of things and I have 20 goals for this week and I've only accomplished 10 of them and I'm such a loser, I'm a failure, whatever it is. Or same thing if you have team members. Oh, I have a team member and I gave them 20 tasks and they only accomplished 10. So ask for what you already have. So, it could be like, I want a happy relationship with my business partner, or a healthy relationship with my business partner. I want a good relationship with my spouse, or I want to spend time with my children today. So things that you already have, because that will shift your perspective. And it's really great. And if you are interested in The Power of Gratitude and Happiness. I highly, highly recommend reading the Dalai Lama's book, The Art of Happiness. It's a phenomenal read and really resonates a lot with me. And then the third one is to leverage your past experience. So this is, again, be grateful for the obstacles that you've overcome in your life. Be grateful for the challenges. Be grateful for the things that didn't go right, because they brought you to where you are today. They've made you more resilient. They've made you stronger. They've made you, all of what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. It's very true. So leverage your past experiences and have gratitude for even the darkest moments in your life, because the darkest moments in your life have given you the strength to overcome whatever other obstacles you will face. So I like that one a lot too. And then I also do create a mantra. So, a mantra can be something as simple as like Om Shanti, which is a mantra that's used a lot in yoga, which means I am peace. Or create a mantra that really resonates with you. If you're religious, it could be something from the Bible or scripture or a poem or whatever it is. And just say that mantra on a daily basis. And then my fifth one is thank 3 people daily without cause. And I really like this one because I think a lot of us are taught please and thank you. And we say please and thank you all day, right? But please and thank you is really a politeness and it's a platitude. And a lot of us will say please and thank you kind of on autopilot. Like, oh, thank you for holding the door open for me. Thank you for bagging my groceries. Oh, please, please and thank you, please and thank you. We're not really thinking about it, and so it's not intentional. So try thanking 3 people every day that you wouldn't normally thank, or thanking a person that you would normally say thank you for, but with intention. So those are my 5, and now I'm going to put Angie on the spot because I told her I would, and I want Angie to give 2 ways that you can leverage gratitude to improve your happiness, your well-being, and make you a better leader and a centered CEO.
Right. For some of us, I think we do better in small groups versus large groups. And I have lots of examples going back to my childhood where I've sometimes, just struggled being in bigger group environments. And one way that I've overcome those circumstances was just that in a big group, first, I'll just kind of talk about the problem is in a big group, you sometimes don't know if you're adding value. And I think as it's human nature to want to be adding value, but when you're in a big environment, you just kind of feel lost. And I know that those were the emotions that I have felt in bigger situations. So what I try to do is create opportunities within a larger community to have a significant impact. It might be one person, or it might be a conversation that I have it with 3 or 4 people at a theater going to and from the auditorium at intermission. I always want to have a conversation that truly identifies an opportunity to either allow for a teaching moment for someone else, or for an opportunity for myself to learn, and an opportunity to create gratitude around that conversation. So it's always important, whether it's a dinner party or, maybe my son's choir concert, for me to recognize, wow, that's an opportunity to see someone I don't see very often, look for them with intention, and to really resonate and say how important it is to you to have seen them, to have run into them, to ask them about their life, let them know that you care. And those are ways that I've really shifted going back to my childhood in terms of when I'm in a situation where I feel overwhelmed, is to really stop, be intentional, and have as much impact as possible. And that impact isn't necessarily have to be amongst the entire group. It can be individual relationships, or the impact might just be internalized. So that's one way that I really express gratitude in my life. And I would say number 2, another great way to really bring more gratitude into your life is to, similarly, like Janet says, to, journal. But also if you're not ready to journal, or you need something in addition to journaling, I like to look at inspiring quotes, and I get an app that I receive on my phone. I didn't want to be bombarded, so it pops up once in the morning and once in the afternoon, but I read it with intentions. I don't swipe it without reading it. I say whatever I'm doing, if that I know it pops up at a given time each day, in the morning, at night, I stop what I'm doing and I give myself a moment to, it's not just reading the quote, but it's also an opportunity where I've trained my brain to say, quiet yourself for 2 to 3 minutes. Just be quiet for 2 to 3 minutes. And that is an easy exercise in a way for somebody who maybe isn't as trained or doesn't have as much of a background in mindfulness or with their own spirituality. Is it's okay to look for tools that can help integrate that into your day-to-day life and running your business. And again, it's not just running business, it's running your life effectively. Your happiness is at work and your happiness is at home, and it's around the people you affect throughout your day professionally as well as in your personal life.
That was so good. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because the concept of gratitude can be so vast. It's kind of like mindfulness. Like, yes, gratitude, if you ask somebody, what does it mean to be grateful? For most of us, there's an autopilot response. Well, grateful, like saying thank you, and if you ask my 10-year-old, what does it mean to be grateful? She'll say, well, it means I said thank you. If you ask, a lot of 45-year-olds what it means to be grateful. But really, gratitude is about making another person. It's not about what you say. It's about how you make another person feel. And so when you make another person feel appreciated and feel heard, that is what it means to show true gratitude. So saying just please and thank you is not necessarily enough. And even if the other person it could be yourself as well, right? So it's really stopping and having that intentional, how does this make someone else feel if you're having an interaction with another person? Or how does this make me feel? Do I feel like I'm enough? Do I feel like I am grateful to myself for the work that I'm doing? Do I feel like I appreciate myself? And then if you're having, again, an interaction with another person, do you feel like you're appreciating other people? And the more that you're self-aware and intentional and mindful in your own life, the more likely you are to be empathetic and to have healthy interactions with other people. And the more aware you are of people who you should be showing gratitude, really true, genuine, intentional, authentic gratitude to in your daily life. And really, honestly, the more you practice it and the more people that you show gratitude to, even if you just stop and say, thank you so much, pick up the phone and call somebody you haven't spoken to in a while and say, hey, thanks so much for being such a good friend to me. It really means, your friendship just means a lot. Or write a handwritten thank you note and say, thank you so much for, your mentorship or your help with this difficult project. If you have team members, write them a personalized thank you note. Like, a little bit goes such a long way. Really just pick up a thank you card and say, dear Tommy, thanks so much for working so hard on this project. I know it was really difficult. I know we had some struggles. I really appreciate your dedication and your hard work. You're such an important part of this team. It only takes a few minutes, but it can have a tremendous lasting impact on the other person, and then also in return on yourself and on your company and on your culture and on the happiness level of the people that you interact with every day. So I hope this was helpful. And I know it's something that we'll talk about again in the future, but hopefully you guys got something out of it. And thanks, Angie, for letting me put you on the spot. I'm grateful for Angie for letting me put her on the spot. I'm grateful for Angie for kind of being flexible. And I called her up and said, you have to do this with me. And she initially said no. And then she was like, okay, yeah, fine, I'll do it. So I'm grateful, and really showing, again, that authentic gratitude. And we have a comment, I definitely think expressing gratitude towards oneself is an important first step in showing gratitude to others. 100%. It's very hard to be grateful to others if you're not grateful to yourself. And you have to be accepting of yourself, and you have to be honest with yourself and be okay with mistakes and be okay when things are not going right and not going well. And, just be grateful for the life that you have and every single day that you have on earth, because it's just another opportunity to do better.
And we live in a society that makes it hard to show gratitude towards ourselves. But it's important to be able to recognize that your success needs to be celebrated. And we'll say it again and again. This environment is about celebration. This environment is, we are proud of you and we're proud of what you're accomplishing in your business. And we know that we're attracting other small business owners that share the importance of practicing mindfulness in their business, as well as recognizing that the way that they run their business has an impact on so many people. It impacts the people you serve, it impacts a greater community, and it impacts your ability to make greater contributions to those that maybe have less than you. So being part of this community is really a chance for you to basically have colleagues at your disposal. We're here to celebrate you, and please share, post, and let us know how you bring gratitude into your life and into your business. Janet, thank you for putting me on the spot, because it really does help to recognize vulnerability is important in life. It makes you authentic and genuine, and it makes you be the human that you know is going to allow you to be your best person. And you have to allow for vulnerability, and you have to allow, you have to express yourself, and you have to be willing to share, share what you have to say. I think we bottle things up, and that's one of the things with gratitude. It's not only gratitude that you need to recognize in yourself, but in order to share that gratitude, whether it's words or actions, it's how you make that person feel. So, pay attention, be intentional, make eye contact when you talk to somebody, instead of all that texting back and forth or liking someone's Facebook post. Call them, say hello, and call them with no reason. Just call and say, hi, I just wanted to talk to you. I wanted to catch up, whether that's in business or whether that's in your personal life. Create those human connections, because that's where you are going to add the most value in your business and in life. So thanks again for joining us. We appreciate it.